here to discuss that and more is one of my favorites on hockey in this country, TVA's Renaud Lavoie, who joins us now. Renaud, thanks a lot for taking the time and doing this with us.
Thank you, my friend.
Everything good with you?
Everything's good. I'm in Chicago right now, not to celebrate the Bears win on Sunday, but I did an interview today. Did an interview today with Marc-Andre Fleury. That's going to be aired next week, and no, it was. It's always fun to come here in this beautiful city.
All right. So the most important question of the day, obviously, is Matt Nagy competent?
No, we all know. You know what? That guy is unbelievable. And talking to people here in Chicago, you know, they hate his guts. They hate the way he's coaching, and they're not alone. I think there's a lot of Bear fans right now that just want him out. And as soon as it's going to happen, I think there's a lot of people who are going to pump up the champagne again.
All right, there's the Bears fan and Renaud Lavoie speaking out on his beloved Bears. Although, looked okay, it was Detroit, but they looked okay. Right. Let's talk about. We showed a pretty good save from Flower yesterday. It's an interesting spot for him. There was some, consternation about him and his family and whether or not he wanted to go to Chicago. I'm interested in you don't have to give it all away, maybe a little bit of a tease for the conversation that you had with him.
But I think it's a great question, because when we've talked about not necessarily the trade, because, Marc-Andre, he's a family man, loves his family, okay? And I told him, I said, am I wrong by saying that the fact that you decided to take some time after the trade to make sure that, you'll accept to go to Chicago? I said, I'm pretty sure it was not about you personally. It was more about how your family is going to react to that. Mm-hmm. And to be honest with you, I'm not saying that he started to cry, but, the eyes went a little blurry because that's the bottom line. He didn't want to move his family again to a city that it didn't really know. But Chicago, we all know, is an unbelievable city. Mm-hmm. And he made sure that his kids were okay with it. That was really important for him, that his wife and his kids were on board. And when he received the green light from the family, he made his decision at the time. But I'm telling you, if the family would have said, Daddy, there's no way, we're not moving, we're not going, I wonder. I still wonder.
Speaking of goaltenders in Chicago, Robin Lehner used to play net in Chicago. Is there any more fallout from the tweets over the weekend from Robin Lehner and how the PA and the league have reacted to it?
Well, I think, and I don't know if you had the chance to listen to what Robin Lehner said today. I think it was a great press conference in Vegas, and he said a lot of good things. He said that now he's going to make sure that all the discussions are going to stay private with the league and the NHLPA. But let's be honest here. Now it's time for the NHL and the NHLPA to make sure that health of the players will be protected. There's a lot of issues, as everybody knows, and are they taking care of all the issues? Cocaine is around the NHL, and that's for me an issue. I am not comfortable hearing that, there is some players who, when they're getting tested for steroids, they know what's inside their blood or whatever it is, and that they find some trace of cocaine or any other drugs. I'm not comfortable with that. I think that the NHLPA should address that. Same thing with the league. How can we look at it and say, well, who cares? I do care. If I had a kid knowing that at 18, 19 years old he's going to play in the NHL, I would ask a lot of questions right now. And I don't think that everybody's got the answers. I think that what Robin Lehner did was, in a way, inappropriate, especially when he talked about Alain Vigneault. But if you look at the big picture, it's about time that a player is saying something.
Yeah, it's funny because obviously if a coach did what Robin Lehner did, a lot of people would be very upset. Like talking about a player, although we do see it every once in a while in a press conference, if a coach tweeted about a player, people would be upset. But there's also this idea that Robert Lehner has spoken the truth, and sometimes a very uncomfortable truth for the NHL. And like, let's be honest here. Like, we're not naive. We watch these players do unbelievable things to their body and return to games, and we call them gladiators, and we constantly ask, oh, well, what did Patrice Bergeron play with? Dear God, he played with a puncture. Like, it's unbelievable. We celebrate them, but there are ramifications to that, and we can't be naive and just sit back and say, well, you know, they get paid a lot of money, because that's not the answer.
Scheduling is an issue, especially in a year again like this year. We have the Olympics, so you know there's a lot of things that's gonna happen. You know what the problem that I see right now, and obviously the season's gonna start in a week. There's a lot of noise right now in the NHL. There's a lot of things going on, and for the first time in a long time, I'm looking at the big picture. I'm looking at what everybody's saying, and I'm like, what is it gonna be like in December? What is it going to be like in February, where we'll have an all-star game in the first weekend of February, and after that, all the best players are going to move to China?
Yeah, it's crazy.
I mean, and after that, everything's going to start over all over again, and everybody's going to fight for the playoff, and the schedule's going to be tight. I mean, that'll be interesting.
You know, it's funny, the players wanted this, right? Like, every player that I talk to about the Olympics, they're super excited about the Olympics. And I look at the schedule, I think the same thing as you. Like, how the hell are they going to pull this off and not be completely exhausted by it all?
I think you know what? Everybody needs, and it's too late. Right now, it's too late. And I did an interview with Bill Daly here in Chicago 3 weeks ago. And he mentioned to me that he was really surprised that the players, you know, when there was the CBA talks, they were really focusing on the Olympics, and that was a priority for them, which is okay. I understand it. But if you look at what the issues it creates, you have to wonder. And at one point, if you want to make sure that all the players are going to be protected the right way, you have to think about that schedule, a tight schedule like we have again this year, like we had last year, and say, you know what, that's a lot of hockey, and we're putting players in their bodies in jeopardy. And in a way, it's not only the league's fault. It's not only the league's fault. The players are responsible for what's going on right now.
So all of this leads to situations that you have around the game, and all this leads to the conversations that Robert Lehner was having. When you condense a schedule, when you put it together, teams are flying all over, trying to get to practice at 7 a.m. after landing at, you know, or trying to get to practice at 9 a.m. when you land at, like, you know, 5 a.m. All of these things can lead to what we're talking about in these substance abuse problems. And this is not a new problem within the league. Do you think that we'll get real steps towards addressing the things that Robin Lehner brought up and the thing in cocaine that you just brought up?
I'll be honest with you. I'm praying that it's going to happen, because we don't want to deal with a bigger issue, a player that's you know, collapsing on the ice or whatever can happen,
right?
Or you know, I think hockey is such a great game. You mentioned how the players were talking about what they're doing to their bodies, and rightly so. We praise them because it's impressive. This is the best game, you know, that we have here in Canada. And I can easily say that watching a hockey game, if you're not a fan, go see a game, and you're going to really enjoy being at the game, and you're going to embrace what the players are doing, and you're going to be happy to see the skill levels that's way better than when we were, you and I, younger, 20 years ago or 25 years ago. So I'm praying that they're going to take care of it. Do I think that we're going to see major changes? I'm not naive enough. I think that if nobody is saying, it was going out, if it's Don Fehr, Gary Bettman, whoever is saying, we're going to address it, it's the end of the story here, and we need to, as a league, to make sure that we're going to protect the players the best way. I didn't hear that today or yesterday, and so I wonder what's coming. When I'll see it, I'll believe it.
Renaud, always great talking hockey with you. Thanks for taking the time and doing this.
Enjoy the game tonight.